Hello everyone. So I'm going to make a short video about how my targeting began and what is the motive of the people targeting me, and how is it done, who's behind it, what sort of countries deploy these covert harassment and torture routines on people who they somehow label as dissidents, or as their sort of unspoken enemies. I was an interpreter. I speak 5 languages, and I worked with many different government bodies and private institutions in the capacity of a translator, interpreter, and also I have worked as legal clerk. Uh, well, outs- outside clerk for a few firms. Um, so I was sort of in contact with different government departments, uh, some of whom are going to be said in this video. So I worked with the Home Office, I worked with the Immigration Service, I worked with the NHS, I worked with solicitors, law firms. I, I don't know how to put this, because this is a very important video for me, because I haven't said my side of the story for what, for 6 years, 7 years, since this harassment and torture began. In 2011, I started feeling watched. Not just feeling, I wasn't sort of imagining this. There were elements that were trying to show me that I was being watched and surveilled, but I had no means of proving that, or stopping it or fighting it, because it was happening from a distance. For example, I started. I was living in Kent, in a town called Rochester, not far from Gillingham and Chatham, Medway towns they're called. I started getting harassed by the police pretty much every day. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. Occasionally I drink, but maybe 3, 4, 5 times a year. I don't drink that often. I don't do drugs, and I am not politically affiliated with any political organization like Labour or Conservatives or Liberal Democrats or anything else. I have no connection to any religious group as well. So they started surveilling me. I was just an interpreter, basically. I don't know the purpose of the surveillance that was being carried out against me, to intimidate me, to bully me. That's how it felt. So I was living in Rochester, and in Rochester, police started harassing me every day. Every day I would get pulled over. I had a legal car. I mean, everything was legit. Insurance, road tax, MOT. I'm not a criminal or anything. So harassment started affecting me too much. Not just the police. There were people coming to my house, for example, outside my house, and they would say things that were related to me in an effort to sort of make me lose the balance or to push me over the edge. But I had no idea who was doing this. I mean, I could have suspected it was carried out by the intelligence services, but I had no proof. So in 2011, in December 2011, I moved out of Kent, and just suddenly I decided one day that I was not gonna put up with this. So I decided to move out of the area I was living, and I moved to Bristol. In Bristol, I started working for a washing machine manufacturing company called Hotpoint. Hotpoint, they use another name as well as Indesit. And basically, my harassment or following started in Bristol as well, which I couldn't understand because it was all too overwhelming. I didn't know what was happening to me, what was the motive, who was doing it. In the back of my head, I always thought it was Secret Services because I know their techniques, and I know their mentality. Basically, I have worked with them. I've worked with Foreign Office as well, UK Foreign Office. Well, in the capacity of self-employed, I wasn't employed by them. So if I said I worked with the Home Office as an interpreter, I have no means of proving that at the moment, other than my word. Anyway, in 2012, I was progressing very well. I started a job at Hotpoint, and very quickly I got the attention of my supervisors and employers by my hard work and by my mental and physical ability. They were impressed with me. Even the company CEO found out about me, and basically they liked my work. Anyway, in 2012, at work, there was a day that I went to work, and one of the colleagues working next to me was moving a panel, and he moved too suddenly, so it hit my fist somewhere here. You can't see the I'm not sure if you can see the scar, but somewhere here I got about 4 or 5 stitches on it. So I decided to take some time off work and recuperate, basically. On the 18th of December 2012, I decided, while I was injured, my hand was in bandages. So I decided on a Thursday night that I was going to go for a few drinks in my local pub. So I had 2 beers at my local pub. The atmosphere wasn't great. Decided to move to a different pub. Went to a pub called Reckless Engineer. It was about maybe 5 minutes walk from my home, maybe 10 minutes walk from my home. Bristol city centre. If you are from Bristol, you would know what I mean. I had altogether maybe 3 to 4 pints, and it was before 11 o'clock that I can remember. I was gonna have maybe another 1 or 2 pints and then go home and crash and sleep. But I couldn't explain. I remember being sober and well and sitting at the bar. But the next thing I remember is 3 o'clock at night. I wake up on the street with injuries to my nose, to my lips, to my mouth, to my throat, to my cheeks, to my chin, to my forehead, neck as well. I couldn't explain how that had happened. I assumed I was attacked by some racist prick and or racist pricks, basically. That's what I thought at the time, because I couldn't put the dots together. So the police were called on site, and the police apparently took some details from me, which I can't remember at the time because I was really dazed. I couldn't remember anything. It is the first time in my life that I was in that sort of situation. 4, 5 pints altogether doesn't knock you out and doesn't make you injured. I was sitting very peacefully at a bar, and the next thing I know is I'm waking up with injuries to my face outside this pub, about 3 4 minutes walk, about 2 minutes 3 minutes walk from the pub. I don't know how I have ended up there. I can't remember that. So I I came home and I tried to sleep. I didn't go to hospital or anything because my injuries were not that severe. Yeah, I was beaten up properly, but I don't think doctors could have done anything. So all I needed to do was to um, basically have some rest and recover. But that didn't happen. So I went home and I crashed, and it took about 3 4 months after that. After this event where I was knocked out and found myself on the street. So harassment in Bristol started again. Cars would pull up outside my house, like 20-yard difference, 10-yard difference, and would put their light, like the car's internal light, and look at my window the whole night. This happened for days and weeks. I don't know. I mean, I don't know the motive of that, but certainly, it it was an effort to intimidate me. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know why they were watching me. So anyway, Bristol became unbearable as well because I was getting people would come up at night, for example, at 12 o'clock at night, next to my window and would say things that were related to me. I know it's bizarre and unbelievable that people can do that, but I didn't know at the time what this was. There's a very good term for this harassment. I'll get to that. So I moved out of Bristol and moved to London. In London, for about 4 or 5 months, I would receive anonymous calls. I had an old phone. I didn't want to have these smartphones because I knew they could be used to spy on us. So I was not in favor of smartphones. I had a very old Samsung phone, which was basically you can make calls and you can receive text messages, but that's about it. No Facebook, no Twitter, nothing like that. So I started receiving private number calls at stupendous hours. For example, there was a night I ran out of cigarettes and I couldn't fall asleep, and I couldn't explain why I couldn't fall asleep. I went out at about 4 o'clock. As soon as I left my house's door, I received a private number call. I think they were letting me know that, look, we are watching you, so be careful what you do. And this phone call started happening very frequent, once a day, sometimes twice a day, every week, every month. While this was happening, strange things was happening to me as well. For example, I couldn't sleep. My mind would not switch off. For example, there were words coming into my head that I could not explain. There were, for example, it's not a nice word, for example, motherfucker, or word like pedophile. And these words, I couldn't explain how they were coming to me, where they were coming from. And I spoke to my family and I said, strange things are happening to me mentally. I can't explain the words that are appearing in my head. One of my brothers said, well, let's get you to a doctor. Maybe you have some mental condition that can be cured, with medication. So I went to doctor and I said to the doctor, I said, look, I need medication for sleep because I can't fall asleep. For nights I would stay awake. For weeks I would stay awake and sleep during the daytime, a few hours. It was very difficult. Basically, my physique changed, my looks changed. Sleep does that to you. Lack of sleep. Then I started hearing proper voices. In the beginning, it was just a couple of words: bastard, motherfucker, or rude words, pedophile. These words would come to my mind, and I couldn't explain. But suddenly, I started hearing a woman's voice. And then I started to hear a man's voice. Then I started hearing an interpreter's voice, which speaks my native language. I don't need to get into details of what my native language is. It's not English anyway. So there were three people that I could hear out of nowhere. I would be sitting at home, nobody there, and suddenly I would start hearing these sounds, which really frightened me in the beginning because I couldn't explain. I was thinking, I'm not a religious person, but when things like that happen to you, you start to think outside the box. What is this? What is this happening to me? Am I really experiencing supernatural phenomena? Am I talking to ghosts? Am I talking to spirits? Am I talking to I don't know, to angels? But angels don't swear, so that doesn't apply. I started hearing voices of people regularly. They would say things to me to break me down. Basically, they would know my mind. They would know my thoughts. For example, I would say, I would think to myself, I'm hungry, and they say, oh, he's hungry again. Not like one word. It started to be 24/7. Accents, and I could tell the accents, like I'm talking to you. I heard them as clear as I hear you. Anyway, so I started experiencing these voices, and then I realized that something really unusual was happening to me. But it took time. It didn't just happen suddenly that I realized what was happening. It took time. It took about a year for me to realize what was happening. I think it took me exactly a year and a few days, not more, to realize what was happening to me. I started asking questions on the internet. This has happened. I put my scenario onto the questions on the internet, Yahoo and MSN and etc. And was hoping people would get back to me and explain my situation a little bit, that this was happening to me, and people were following me, and people were saying bad things about me, and people were talking things outside my house's window all of a sudden that never happened before. How was this happening? And one of the people said, you are being gang stalked. This term gang stalking was very new to me. I didn't know what the gang stalking me meant. So I researched about this term that was being suggested, and I clicked. It suddenly, all the things that was happening to me and this term gang stalking, it suddenly made sense. I wasn't alone experiencing this. There were thousands of people that were experiencing this, and they all had the same symptoms, the same situation. Anyway, 2012, I decided that I was going to investigate how this was being done. I didn't know fully how this worked, but at least I knew the term gang stalking, which was a great relief, by the way, because I realized I'm not the one who's going crazy. These things are happening to me because somebody is putting it. Yeah? Somebody was doing it. So 2013, everything made sense. By this time, I knew how the sounds were being sent to me, um, the mechanics of it. I studied civil engineering as well, so I'm quite scientifically minded, very up to date with technological achievements, with science breakthroughs and etc. I keep myself well informed. So somebody said, look, these things are happening because you have been implanted with an RFID microchip. Basically a microchip that is the size of a grain of rice. And when they said that, like that, it made sense. My attack in Bristol, the injuries, and me finding myself unconscious on the street. So I linked that attack to what was being said to me about the microchips. So on that night when I went out to Bristol town centre, that is when I got attacked by these horrible creatures that makes me ashamed to call myself human being. Because if I am human being and if they are also human being, then it's a big shame for me that I am from the same species of these horrible people. When I say horrible people, I'm really not exaggerating. They are the worst creatures that have existed since the beginning of time. They have no shame, no honor, no discipline, no principles, nothing. All they care about is the paycheck check at the end of the month. They don't care about anything else. They do things because they are being told to do it. So in 20 the doctor gave me some in 2013 the doctor gave me some medication for sleep, Zopiclone. I started because I couldn't sleep because of the reason of these voices. The voices would keep me awake whole night, and during the day I wasn't working again. I had quit jobs. I was unemployed. I couldn't work because of lack of sleep. Whole nights they would keep me awake with the voices. So I carried out an X-ray of my head, and bingo, I found the microchip embedded in the center of my nervous system. When on the same day that I figured the microchip and I had it on the X-ray, they started hitting me with directed energy weapons because they realized I have figured it out now. And now my targeting was of the next level. They target you with directed energy weapons to cause you unbearable pains in all spots of your body. For example, eyes, the back of the eyes, the back of the head, top of the head, any place. Internal organs, lungs, heart, kidneys, excuse my French, your genitals, receiving burns and pains on the same day that I carried out the X-ray at a private facility in Harley Street, London. I didn't go to my doctor because my doctor was an idiot, didn't know what was happening to me, couldn't explain anything, and I didn't want to put myself in jeopardy where they can easily label you psychotic or anything like that, because once you're labeled psychotic, the government can do anything to you and you have no means of fighting back. There's a lot of people who have been taken by this horrible torture and have ended up in mental institutions. I'll explain. This is a long video, by the way. I was hoping to make it short, but I don't want to die with these secrets buried in me, because these secrets in the future will affect the whole of humanity. And I want to be one of those people who tried their best to warn others of this terrible use of technology against innocent civilians. When I saw the microchip in my in the X-ray, I went online and I created accounts on Facebook under a pseudonym, basically. and started communicating with people who were exactly in my situation. They called themselves targeted individuals. They are being targeted covertly by unknown forces. So there was some relief that I wasn't alone, and I didn't feel an alien. I felt okay. Well, there's other people who are experiencing this, so it's not the end of the world. But it is for some. You know, when you get implanted with a microchip, this is a death sentence. You know, you are basically punished for whatever reasons they have got against you. Whatever. I don't know the reason that this happened to me. Anyway, when I figured out the microchip, I was one day coming from Kent to London via high-speed 1 train. The high-speed 1 had just basically come up, a few years of it. On the train, I was sitting on an empty carriage. There was nobody on the train, about 7-8 o'clock in the evening, on the 24th of June 2013. So at Ebbsfleet International, the two people got on the train, but before that, actually, I received this anonymous call. I told you that I was receiving private phone calls, yeah, private numbers that would disappear once I had answered it. There would be no record of it on my phone, and they wouldn't say anything. But this time, a voice said to me on the phone, said, "There's two people coming on the train. Listen to them." And it hang up. What is funny is we were in a tunnel, and I checked my phone's signal. There was zero reception, no bars at all. But I don't know. Still, they managed to call me. Zero reception at a high-speed train in a tunnel. There was no coverage, but I received a phone call. And about maybe 10 minutes or 5 minutes later, two people boarded the train. One of them sat next to me to block my exit, and another sat in front of me. And the one sat in front of me started talking. Said, "We want you to be useful to us." Useful, the term they used. "We want you to be useful to us." They didn't introduce themselves. "My name is this and that." They didn't. One of them was maybe Indian or Pakistani origin, about 45, 50 years old, suited. And the other one was an Englishman, white man, of maybe same age, a bit older than the Indian or Pakistani guy. This Englishman was the one with the talk. The Pakistani or Indian person was very quiet. "We want you to be useful to us." I said, "Who are you? And what do you want?" "That will all be explained to you." I said, "What if I decide that I don't want to work for you?" He said, "Well, we'll put you in jail." When he said "put you in jail," that really pissed me off, honestly. I said to him, "Fuck off." Like that. They got up. They didn't say anything. They went and sat next to the door, a few seats down the line. And when the next station came, they walked out of the train and disappeared. "We will put you in jail" resonated in my brain for a long time. This was on the 24th of June. On the 27th or 28th of June 2013, when I came to London, my neighbor started harassing me. For example, the upstairs neighbor would be moving the chairs at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, or the table, banging things and stuff. Anyway, it started to be so severe that I wasn't getting any sleep, and plus I was getting hit by directed energy weapons. So I went to my upstairs neighbor and I said, "Look, can you please keep the noise down at night, because it's really disturbing my sleep?" You know what she said to me? It was an old woman. She said, "You're crazy. I mean, think about it. You go to a neighbor and ask them to keep the noise down at night because it's affecting your sleep, and they tell you you're crazy. Anyway, I came back to my house, and the same thing started happening every day. One day I had enough, and I went and knocked on the neighbor's door. I said, if this happens, I'm going to kick your door and I'm going to beat you up. I know it's not the best solution, but if your mind is being occupied with this kind of things, you're not really the most rational person. I'm sure I could have found a better way of dealing with my neighbor, but that is what I could think of it, because it makes you angry. The point is to drive you insane. This is 4 days after the so-called agents approaching me and asking me to work or be useful to them. 4 days. So I went the next day. The neighbor started making sounds in the morning. I wanted the neighbor to know what sounds was affecting me. So I went upstairs again and I knocked on the door. When I knocked on the door suddenly just got pushed in. It was open, it wasn't locked. And from the other side of the door, there were 2 police officers. Straight away they came and handcuffed me. Said, "Oh, you broke the door." You know, this is British police, yeah. You broke the door. I literally just done that, and the door went in. And he said, "You broke the door." Anyway, they handcuffed me and took me to police station. They were charging me with property damage for something that I haven't done, for something that I hadn't done. And they asked me questions. Why was I angry with my upstairs neighbor? I said, look, this person is making noise at silly hours in the morning and keeping me awake. So they put me back to my cell. 2 hours later, they brought me to a room, and there's 4 or 5 people sitting there, and they started asking questions. I mean, I hadn't come across this sort of situation before. It was the only thing that. So when they brought me into the room, then they started asking me these questions. I said to them, "Are you trying to section me or something?" And they said, "Why would you say that?" They didn't introduce themselves. They are required by law to introduce themselves. I'm psychiatrist, I'm nurse, I'm social worker. They have to do that by law, but they didn't introduce themselves. All they wanted to do was to label me mental or psychotic, so my claims are not taken serious. That is my way of looking at it, and I think that is the truth as well. So they said, well, we're going to psychiatrically evaluate you. So we're gonna section you. We're gonna send you to a mental institution, and we're gonna keep you there for your own safety. They care about my safety. Anyway, took me to the mental institution and tried to expose me to things that I don't think exist in any book or in any movie or in any tale, or even in legends. It doesn't exist. The people they put me up with were complete mentals, psychotic people that would punch metallic doors with their fist swollen this big, convicted pedophiles who would talk to me about their horrendous crimes. I mean, I had no choice but to just sit there and listen. I couldn't even fight back with them, because if I did, then it would affect my evaluation. So all I could do was listen to the horrific things that was being said, raping children and this and that, and God, it was the worst thing that had happened to me ever. That 11 days that I was in the mental institution was the worst time of my life. Just imagine you're being sent to a mental institution because you knocked on your neighbor's door and warned them not to make noise. Anyway. the psychiatrists, the nurses, they were making an effort to get me on a what's it called? Section 1. Yeah, Section 1 is you're under observation because you have said things that do not appear to be normal. Anyway, so in the mental hospital, there were 2 psychiatrists that were trying their best to have me stay in that place longer. And one of them started saying like things like, "Oh, we spoke to your sister, and your sister says she's scared of you." My sister. She hasn't said that, by the way, but they made that up. It was an effort to put me in conflict between me and my sister and other siblings. On the day, so I appealed against the section decision. You can appeal that, and the court hearing was in this mental institution. And on the same day that they said that, I called my sister, I called my brothers, and I said, "Please, I want you to attend this hearing because this is a very unfair thing. I don't want to be put in a bloody mental institute for the rest of my life. Once you're labeled psychotic, they can put you for infinite time. That's it. You have lost everything. You have no rights. You have nothing. There are thousands of people like me in mental institutes who are totally normal people who have nothing wrong with them mentally, physically, physiologically. But this is how dissidents are being targeted. In the mental institute, I met people in the same situation as me, but they couldn't figure it out. Some of them were saying they are talking to aliens, talking to ghosts. This is how they deceive them. They tell them things like that. They lead them to that conclusion. I met pure geniuses, mathematicians, who could do pi up to 33 digits. You could do pi. I mean, you give them a figure, and I would calculate. I've calculated their formulas so accurate. They're like real geniuses, but for some reason they call them psychotic because they are hearing voices, and these voices are technologically done. I know this is a very big conspiracy, and people who are normal and people who are not affected by these things cannot believe that their government can do that. Just remember, on the 24th of June, I was told that I will be put in jail. On the 27th or 28th of June, I was actually put in a mental institution. So it took 4 days from the train incident to me being in mental hospital. But on the 11th day, when my hearing was being adjourned, I got brought into a room, and the psychiatrists that were trying to basically label me psychotic asked me, "Look, we may understand that you are brought here, but what would you like us to do?" I said, "Well, there's nothing mentally wrong with me, so I think you should release me." And my sister and brothers were coming as well, so their lie would have been caught, because he said to me that my sister has said that she was scared of me. So if on the court date, my sister would have showed their lie. I have never said that. Why did you make this up? They would have been humiliated. So on the same day of my court hearing, they said to me, "You can go. You're released." So they signed my papers and released me. The directed energy weapon assaults became so severe, and the stalking, the harassment, the noises from people downstairs coming next to your window and shouting things, obscene things, calling you names. They've called me homosexual, they've called me pedophile, they've called me lots of names, and they repeat that. It's a deliberate attempt to break you down psychologically, to make you feel like you're not worth something, that you're a demon, you're a nasty person. You understand what I mean? Every day, voices to my head, hits of directed energy, pains all over the body. Genitals, man. Why are you so obsessed with my genitals, for fuck's sake? You know? Anyway. So this is called mind control. Do you get it? This is how it's done. They try to modify the person's who is being targeted, their behavior, their patterns, their way of thinking, their way of living, their way of achieving things, demolish any potential completely. That is how it's done. From 2011, 2012, 2013, we are in 2018 now. I have survived the worst treatment that could be possible. Anyway, so when I realized the microchip was there and it was causing all the grief, I went, and I had funds at the time because I had saved up. So I went to India. And tried to remove the microchip. At first, doctors would just pure and simple say, we don't think that is a microchip. So what is that thing I would ask, what is the thing there? We don't know what it is, but it's not a microchip. I don't think it can control your thoughts. I don't think it can send voices to you. So, okay. But I met a few of them, a few neurosurgeons that understood this, especially one of them who had worked with Indian military before. He said to me, look, the best thing you can do right now is to forget about this microchip, because where this is right now, if we have an operation or surgery on it, the likelihood is that you will die, because it's in the center of your nervous system. If you don't die, the least that would happen to you, you would be paralyzed for life, because they are nerves in the center of nerves. It's not, it is in the skull. It's not in the brain. It's in the nerves. It's in the side, the nervous system. I'll show an X-ray on a next video clip. Anyway, so this is called mind control. They put a microchip in you. They start harassing you. They try to break you down, all in an effort to make you useless, because you have upset somebody in the intelligence community by whatever. They don't give you the reason why you have upset somebody, why they're doing this to you. Do you get the picture? You think I'm making this up? Do you understand this? If you don't understand this, I don't blame you, because this is so extraordinary that an average person can't understand it. It's just beyond words. So that's my life at the moment. They give me pains at work to cause me to quit, or to cause me to be sacked, to make a mistake, to be in conflict, to be less productive. Voices, 3 operators speak to me every second. I mean, even right now they're speaking to me, but I'm ignoring them, because I have built this mechanism now where I can ignore them. Initially I didn't have this mechanism, mental capacity to fight back. Now I have. I know how to survive this. They cause you pain at work in order to show you, like, look, if you work, we're going to cause you pain, so you have to quit. My last job, because of the chatter in my brain, sometimes when I'm talking to people, I miss some of the words that are being said. For example, 3 people are talking in my head like I'm talking to you right now. I hear them so clear. And then another person is talking to you. You're bound to have less attention. Do you get my point? 3 people talking in your head and another person talking to you. You're bound to miss a few words. Not all the time, but occasionally. once in a blue moon is enough. So customers have said, because I come across as not listening or not interested or whatever, they have said that I was rude. So I lost my job basically because of that. All it takes is one person to complain against you and say, look, this person is rude, and your employer would not be happy about that. And now I'm homebound. This is mind control. And if you don't raise your voice, one day be certain that this would happen to you as well. Because I'm not an extraordinary man. I'm not genius or anything. I'm not Albert Einstein. I'm not Stephen Hawking. But this has happened to me. If this can happen to me, be sure that it can happen to you as well. I have researched this for 7 years, for at least. And in the 7 years, I came across this conspiracy they call schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is the biggest and the most well thought of plan ever. They basically find somebody that is not in their favor and label them as a dissident or as an enemy. And then they deploy these techniques that has happened to me. It's a miracle that I have survived. Not just the side, the physical side of it, the mental side of it. You will not be able to stand 5 days in this sort of extreme environment. You would either decide to kill yourself, or they will push you over the edge and cause you organ damage, brain damage. They can kill me anytime, basically. Anytime. But the fortunate thing is, I have people who understand my situation. For example, in my family, I have a few members of my family, my siblings, that believe me, that understand me. I was 28 years old when my harassment started. I'm 35 now. I have aged at least double. I have aged 20 years in 7 years. I used to keep fit, physically fit, in shape, exercise. But I can't do any of those things, can't afford it, because I don't have a job. And if I have a job, the same treatment comes again. So, this is a 60-year-old secret. I want to name some of the countries that deploy mind control techniques against their citizens. The worst offender is the US government, followed by UK, France, Spain, Belgium, all the European nations. They have mind control technology. Israel, India, Taiwan, Thailand, China, Japan, they have this capability that torture their citizens with electromagnetic weapons. I know this next statement about cell towers is going to blow your mind. Cell towers is how they are causing me pain. Understand? I have been implanted with a microchip that gives them my exact coordinates, and I think the microchip can detect your brainwaves as well. And that is how they know what I'm thinking, and that is how they can send voices to me. But they can do it without microchip as well. All they need is your location. They send the waves to your head, read the whole of your brain activity, pass it to computers, translate it into sound. So whatever you're thinking to yourself, they can hear it as a sound and also as text in front of them. Okay, I think this needs to be exposed. I'm not going to marry because of this. So it's a big sacrifice that I'm making. All I wanted was a good, loving family and to be a loving father and husband. But I have to give up this most common role that is for a man. I can't marry. How am I going to keep my wife? I can't work. I mean, I can work. Yes, I'm still fit. There's nothing wrong with me. But they won't let me. So that is how it works. British Secret Service's MI5 are the worst possible creatures. I don't call them human beings. It's an insult to human beings. They are the worst possible creatures that have ever existed on the planet. Ask me questions, because my mental capacity has been affected. Right now, what I'm talking to you is probably about 35% of my mental capacity. Another 65% has been damaged because of the routines they put me through. I haven't slept last night, and I haven't slept the night before. I slept yesterday 3 hours in the daytime, and maybe I'll sleep another 2 hours today. That is how much sleep I'm getting, and you need to have at least 6 to 8 hours sleep. It makes you age faster. It makes your brain less active. It makes you less clever, basically. They want to dumb you down to make you an idiot. Also an example to others. To people that I talk to, some of them cannot understand this, even though I speak in very plain words. They can't figure it out. Raise your voice against mind control. Raise your absolute possible best voice to fight this. Because the people that are doing this to me, they have the capability to control the whole of humanity. That's what they want. They want machines to be implanted in us, to make us semi-robots. You understand? Semi-robots that can be controlled and influenced at the click of a button. This is going to be the worst possible era for human beings. No privacy, no freedom, nothing. This destroys the whole principle of humanity. You have to raise your voice. I cannot do more than I'm doing. How long I got? I give myself another maybe 6 years at most. The waves that they are sending to me, they cause cancer. They are microwaves emitted from cell towers, mobile phone masts, Wi-Fi masts, not your home Wi-Fi. They have Wi-Fi antennas or masts outside in many cities, in many countries. They are 300,000 watts strong. They can turn your charcoal black in a matter of seconds if they use it at full strength. That is the weapon they have. Do you think you are safe from this? You are not. Ciao.